Stugotz, why did you just wave a dismissive hand at your computer and say to your computer, "Give me a break"?
There's a baseball fan, Red Sox Yankee fan, a Yankee fan who grabbed a baseball. A Red Sox outfielder was flipping it to a Red Sox fan at Yankee Stadium, and a Yankee fan intercepted it and he threw it back, and he hit the player in the back, and he should be in trouble, the player. But they banned him. First off, are we certain that he did that intentionally? I don't know if that's been proven yet.
I don't
I'd like
care
to know.
about. I don't care about intent. What difference does it make? Whether
Well,
the
because, fans throw baseballs back all the time. They do it at Wrigley Field. If the opposing team hits a home run, they just do it in certain places. But I'm just laughing at the notion that this fan, who's a Yankee fan, has been banned from every baseball game and every baseball stadium for the remainder of his life, for the remainder of time. So and no one's going to enforce it, Dan. It's laughable that this man is going to walk into a Reds 110 Monday game, and there's going to be a security guard sitting there going, "Hey, you're not allowed in here." I mean, no one's going to enforce it. It's dumb.
It's going to be hard to enforce. There were some. That wasn't even the worst thing that happened at a baseball game this weekend. The Red Sox just walked off the field when that happened. It is difficult to enforce, but if you're baseball and you want to discourage such things, and we came out of this pandemic crazy and immediately started throwing things at the basketball players, and everybody is a little sad and scared and sick and behaving weird, and so you get these things that infringe upon sports as well. But the scarier one, after the All-Star game, had an arrest a block away that had us wondering, because there were 16 long guns and body armor and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, whether somebody was thinking about just assassinating people at the All-Star game, even though they showed it to be something else. You guys saw, right? Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado sort of ushering panicked fans into their dugout and clubhouse like it was a bomb shelter, because there were gunshots nearby. This stuff, I don't know that there's any way to get away from it. If it's happening everywhere in our streets and stuff, some of it is going to leak into sports. But let's talk about some of the happier things from sports this weekend, and an old favorite being able to make fun of the Mets, who actually won the game in question while allowing 6 first-inning runs to the Pirates. But I've never seen what happened in that game before, which is the Mets have a pitcher, Taijuan Walker, who's been very good this year. And that poor guy, let's think about this for a second, okay? You are somebody who only works in front of the lights 1 every 5 days. You're working on your craft 1 out of every 5 days. And this person has been a good pitcher all year. His ERA, 2.5 all season. The Mets aren't actually that good, but their record is better than their run differential, and that is a weak division, so they are in first place. And that guy comes out working 1 every 5 days, and yesterday he has an outing. His ERA for the day was 135. He pitched a third of an inning. He walked 4 guys, allowed 4 hits, allowed 6 runs in a third of an inning. His ERA went from 2.5 to 2.99. So that hurts, okay? But the way that happened, Stugotz, where there is a ball that's just nubbed down the third base line where the bases are loaded, and he does that thing that pitchers like to do, or really infielders like to do, when a ball is spinning weird, they wait or try to wait till it's in foul territory and just hit it with their glove as hard as they can. But evidently it wasn't yet in foul territory. Evidently it was still on the chalk when he did it. So he did it. He's proud of himself, and they're just pirates running around the bases. And that's as free as the Pirates have felt in like 10 years.
I mean, they never stop. They just keep rounding the bases.
Everybody was just running around the bases, and he was just standing there waiting and expecting somebody to go get that baseball for him as his day swirls down the toilet, as Pirates run around the bases, as his ERA swirls down the toilet.
Waiting for a ball to go foul or fair is a very dangerous game for a pitcher. It is, and that one got him, and it got him good. I think they scored 3 runs on that.
They scored 3 runs. That is correct.
It was actually the weirder situation in baseball where the ball started out foul and was headed back in fair, and he didn't get it quick enough. So it touched the line, and then he threw. He would have, honestly, it would have been better for him to pick it up and throw it into the upper deck than what he did, because at least the ball would have gone out of play and all of the runs wouldn't have scored. He did himself a disservice by merely just kind of throwing it towards the dugout. Because if he would have knocked it out of play, 3 runs would not have scored on that play.
I would like to examine this with you guys for just a second, okay? Because it's easy for us to laugh at, but these people are paid a lot of money to have pride in their craft, and they work very hard to have something like a 2.5 ERA. That guy is standing by the catcher after he has whacked the ball, and he never goes to get it until 2 of the runs have scored and the third is clearly coming in. And I don't know what he was waiting for, as the umpire is sitting right in his face saying that ball is still fair. I just don't know how you stand there and wait for someone else to go get it.
It looked like there was a moment where no one knew where the ball was. They kind of were like looking around.
Well, he knew where it was. He had just hit it very hard with his glove.
No, but Chris is right. It looks like one of the runners perhaps kicked the ball, and then all of a sudden everyone's searching for the ball.
Right? He flipped it up in the air, but he didn't see where it went. I saw confusion on the Mets player's faces, like a brief 5 seconds, like, where is the ball?
Forgive me. I did not see whatever angle Stugotz has. Is Stugotz making stuff up? Do you guys have a Pirates runner kicking the ball?
That's impossible. He would have been called out or something for interfering with the ball. He did not kick the ball.
I had the Mets pitcher flipping it and then kind of losing where it went, and he thought he flipped it up and he was looking around, but it went towards the dugout.
Or maybe he went to pick it up and he lost control of the ball. But there's a time where he's picking it up right on the baseline, right on the line, and then he's running 5 feet out of bounds, right? Like he's running towards his dugout to get the ball. It's weird.
What
did anyone see this?
I saw it.
I'm watching it now.
I don't know, but you're clearly not watching it correctly. You had a pirate. What are you doing when you're not counting money? You're not following your baseball team. What are you doing?
They came back and won that game, Dan. First place, Metropolitan.
Thank you, Stugotz, for a whole lot of nothing. Mike, how are you feeling in general about the way that this basketball series has turned, where there's a very interesting thing happening where fans of basketball are being very proprietary, very prideful about, we love this thing. And that last game was a magical basketball game. And they're coming after us because we are the show who said the thing that wasn't respectful enough. Amin Al-Hassan said that the Milwaukee Bucks might not win, or he didn't have any confidence they would win a game in the series after the Suns won the first 2 games. He said they're one of the worst finals teams ever. They have not lost since then. And we as a show had a poll question, is this the worst finals ever? And now we're the only ones who have cared enough to say a negative thing about this series. And so you've got your buddy Rob Perez, Worldwide Wobe, saying, if you're not enjoying if you're not enjoying these NBA finals, you're just telling on yourself.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have been telling on myself. I've been telling you I'm not watching it. You guys did something on Saturday. You watched it. I just carried on living my life. I don't have the interest in watching it. I'm sure the basketball is fine. It's the NBA finals. They are good teams. That's usually how this one works out. I'm glad that the series has been more interesting because the games have been a little bit more competitive, but I'm not going out of my way to watch it because I don't find it interesting. I'm not invested in it. I'm sorry, but that's me. That's my choice. You don't get to speak for me. I speak for me here.
It was very good basketball on Saturday night.
It's on Saturday night. What are they doing? They used to avoid Saturday nights. I'm not doing that. I'm doing fuckboy shit.
Okay, very
You doing
good.
what? I'm sorry.
What?
What?
You could feel free to explain, or we could just end the segment.
He's so ashamed of himself.
He really is.
He's not explaining that.
We can end the segment
Very
there.
good. Let's end the segment and regroup. There were some interesting things from the finals, whether or not you care about basketball or not. LeBron, not being in the finals, wanted to be close to the action, so he came in courtside. There was a bottle of liquor under his chair, a liquor that he is invested in and may have been there strategically.
I'm also not having that he just wanted to watch basketball. Space Jam was in theaters this weekend. He was trying to get the crowd shot of LeBron James at the game.
Of course. He wanted to be near the finals, and I loved what Disney ABC did to the graphic because Space Jam is in the theaters and it just knocked out Black Widow. As LeBron is there, they put up on the screen 31% Rotten Tomatoes score, 38% media critic score. That is absolutely Disney doing that on purpose to Warner Brothers, correct? Now, Slate has described the movie as an abomination, and I don't know what you expected because all it had to do was be big, right? It didn't have to. We're not looking for art there. We're just looking for nostalgia in kids. What else are we trying to do there? Of course, LeBron James doesn't love basketball so much that he simply wanted to watch a game courtside because he just can't be away from basketball. He wanted to not only sell his movie, but also sell his liquor. How can anyone get into an arena with their liquor and put it under a seat? These guys have gotten so good at this. You know that 10 years ago, these guys have put their jerseys over their mouths so that you can't lip read on what it is that they're telling each other. They know when they're being watched.
Did he chalk this up to supporting Chris Paul? Is that what he's doing? Like, hey, I was there to support my friend CP3 to help him try to win his first NBA title. And that's the way you do it if you're going to do it. So
you would know how to do things insincerely.
I would. And yes, we'd all be kicked out. If I brought my own bottle of liquor to any arena in America, I would not be able to get in with said bottle of liquor.
He's LeBron James. That was totally promotional there. But guys, I think burying the lead here when it comes to LeBron being at that game, because my world got set fire to. Adele set fire to it. She sets fire to the rain and NBA Twitter dating circles as Adele was pictured with Rich Paul.
You've got to admire the hustle on Rich Paul. You have to. All of it. Wasn't he selling T-shirts for LeBron? Isn't that how
They
all
met
of
at
that
an airport?
Isn't that how all that began? You have to respect and admire the hustle. Stugotz must be insane with jealousy that he couldn't figure out that all he could do was me. That
I could have had LeBron.
That he couldn't do what Rich Paul did, which is parlay all of that. There was a profile in the New Yorker on Rich Paul, and the writer wrote in the profile that he could not tell whether or not they were talking about Rich Paul, and he did not name the pop star, whether they were talking about Adele for the writer's benefit. He couldn't tell whether they were talking about the fact that she might come by later so that the writer would absorb that and write about it or not. And so Adele, she's not out in public that much that way, is she? Like, that is not something you see very often.
We very rarely get a glimpse into her private life. Occasionally she'll dress up at a reggae fest and we'll be like, what's that? She's into that stuff, huh? And now we're finding out. You guys have to see this picture. I can't be the only one that's seen this picture. It was, she got hit with a bunch of cultural appropriation stuff, but it was pretty shocking because I don't know if you know this, but Adele, queen of the breakup song, she had a divorce. So that album's going to be fire, but now she's enchanted with love.
Are you guys telling me in the chat here that I got fooled by the internet again? That what was fake? What was fake? The bottle was fake?
No, the bottle was real. The graphic was fake. It was not a bad Rotten Tomatoes score that was displayed.
Damn. I thought that would have. I'm sorry.
You weren't watching the finals either. Huh?
I didn't see that. No, I did watch the finals game. I had to. We've got to do all that post-game stuff we were doing.
Nope. You could have done what I did. Saturday? Nope.
I couldn't have done Bleep Boy Bleep.
I mean, you realize how unprofessional that would have been if Disney actually did that.
Oh, I wish they had done it. That's my bad for getting fooled by the internet. God, that stinks.
I think we agreed that some sort of fine.
What is the fine?
It's $25.
Is me being fooled by the internet now a fine? Is that
it has been for a while.
It should be.
Yeah.
Okay. It has been a fine? Okay.
Yeah, but Rich Paul is still dating Adele, right? We're for certain.
That's
But
real.
I didn't know what it is the internet had fooled me on. Was it the bottle of liquor? Was it Adele?
NBA will do that. Laura Dern and Baron Davis dated for a while, and that one surprised me too. Laura Dern's got a wild side to her too. Like she's like a very bohemian spirit. I think she was with Ben Harper for a while. I love Laura Dern.
So do I.
I think she was like 23 years old when she made Jurassic Park, which is wild because she seemed like a 35-year-old mother of two.
Yeah.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Did Laura Dern seem like a 35-year-old mother of two when she was 23 years old in Jurassic Park? One of the funny things that happened in the post-game press conference after that game, I don't know if you saw this, Stugotz, but you had a situation where Chris Paul and Devin Booker are on the podium being interviewed after a heartbreaking loss. And a lot of interesting things happen in that game. I mean, we could sit here and talk for a while about whether Jrue Holiday did the right thing mathematically, having the ball with 16 seconds left and deciding to alley-oop it there.
They won the game, right?
Yes.
He did the right thing.
Okay, thank you. I'm just talking about whether or not the numbers crunchers would support. It was a magical moment to finish the game that way and lob it up. But if he'd missed the alley-oop and gotten fouled and missed the free throws, we'd be talking today about what a choker Giannis Antetokounmpo is, and you would be.
I'd be crushing Holiday, Giannis, everyone.
Crushing everybody. And now Stugotz is somehow going to make his way toward being right on Chris Paul, possibly, not really, but he can sit here and do the same thing that he's done, even though Chris Paul had 70 points in 2 consecutive games. Somehow, if Chris Paul loses, Stugotz is going to be able to take his victory lap of criticizing and crushing Chris Paul.
Well, he's been bad. He deserves it. He's been bad the last 3 games where they needed him to be really, really good, and he just hasn't been there. Like, he's averaging 5 to 6 turnovers a game, Dan. He's not playing that well. And if you're Monty Williams, I think in this particular game, Dan, they are minus 17, I believe, over the last 3 games with him on the floor. Like, you got to think about something different at this point.
Well, the last time you did that, he scored 41 and eliminated the Clippers, I think, or 45. The last time you benched him for Cameron Payne, that's what he did. So your theory on why this is happening to Chris Paul is?
Jrue Holiday is really my theory. That's where it really started. Like, Mike and I talked about this during the regular season, how big of an addition that was for this Bucks team because of how good he is defensively. He'll give you good offensive games, but he's kind of inconsistent. Defensively, he's always there. And so when they moved Holiday onto Chris Paul has been a shell of himself. He just hasn't been as good, and that's why the Bucks. It's interesting with the Bucks. They're doing it this old school way. This is why we respect Michael Jordan so much. He stayed put and let the team build around him, and that's what Giannis has done. Middleton has become a better player, and the Bucks gave up a lot to get Jrue Holiday, and it's paying off. But I would say if you're wondering why Paul's not playing as well, it's because defensively, Jrue Holiday is really, really good.
And they may be one of the luckiest champions of all time. Kevin Durant's sneaker size, maybe a little too large, 1 inch the other direction, and they're eliminated. They've benefited from a lot of injuries, but they will become the poster children for if you're one of those mid-market teams and you need a piece, you're a piece away, go all in on the Jrue Holidays, go all in on the PJ Tuckers, because you can eventually be a champion if you have a player as good as Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they've done it.
And I think Damian Lillard is seeing that with Portland, where he's sending some messages over the weekend. Like, he wants to stay there, but you have to go all out. Like, he feels like he's in his prime and he has a chance to win a title, and they need to surround him with better players than CJ McCollum. That's what he feels like.
He denied all of that. He denied all of the reports. You mentioned the sneaker size of Kevin Durant. I do find interesting with this stuff. I will never stop finding this part of it interesting because Stugotz can waver and waffle from side to side. But if Kevin Durant had a smaller foot, Jrue Holiday would have done nothing in these playoffs. The first 2 rounds was nothing from Jrue Holiday. They would have been eliminated in the second round.
Right.
And his games were against Atlanta, and his games are now. He got more chances. This is what I'm always telling you about sample size. Keep giving good players chances, and you will get memorable performances. But go look at the game logs on Jrue Holiday. Go tell me, remember something from what Jrue Holiday did when he was carried into the next round by Kevin Durant's foot size.
Right.
And he got
But Dan, you could do that across sports, like forever. You can go back and say, if this happened, this wouldn't have happened. What's always there is his defense.
But what I'm saying to you is you wouldn't be talking about his defense, knowing about his defense, or doing anything other than criticizing the Bucks for mortgaging their future for his defense, if not for the shoe size of Drew Holiday. That's where and how you always get to be right, or the shoe size of Kevin Durant, rather.
Right.
So anyways, the point that I was making is that they asked Devin Booker in that press conference after that loss, how frustrated are you for Chris Paul right now? So they're sitting next to each other, Devin Booker and Chris Paul. They're sitting next to each other. How frustrated are you for Chris Paul? And neither one of them knew how to answer it. They just sort of stared, and there was this silence. They were asking the question, and there was just this clumsy silence. And I don't even know who it is that said next question. I couldn't even tell in the press conference. But that you would arrive in the finals as 36-year-old Chris Paul after having he did have 2 games combined, right, where he had something like 70-something points combined in 2 games here pretty recently.
It was the last game of the last series and game 1 of this series. He was great, and then he fell apart.
When do you hear pity in a press conference? Devin Booker with Chris Paul sitting right next to him. Devin Booker feels plenty bad. He got stripped at the end of the game.
Right.
With the last shot after scoring 42 points. He feels plenty bad. How often do you get the question, how frustrated are you for the guy? How much pity do you have for the guy sitting right here next to you?
I mean, hearing you guys talk about it feels like I miss a hell of a game.
As you were doing bleep boy bleep. Chris Cody, there is no particular reason that I'm asking you this question. But Mark Wahlberg, who is preparing for a new role and is somebody who is so obsessive compulsive about working out that he has in his hotel room, Stugotz, when he is anywhere in the world, he has entire gyms put in his hotel room. He's not using hotel rooms. He's just putting all of the equipment. It must be something contractually that he does with his movies. He is eating 11,000 calories a day and says it is no fun for a new role. Now, I would say to you, if you're Mark Wahlberg, you don't have to take your acting that seriously. You don't have to do anything at this point in your life that's not fun because you're trying to be some method acting thespian. You should eat and live the way that you want and make the movies that you want. But does 11,000 calories a day sound like it's no fun? Yes or no? I saw this with Brendan Fraser the other day because Brendan Fraser has, it's just alarming what's happened to Brendan Fraser. And this is coming from a fat guy, but Brendan Fraser is a sex symbol and what he looks like, he was a sex symbol at the height of his powers. And what he looks like now is, I would describe it as alarming. So Chris Cody, my question to you is 11,000 calories a day, fun or no fun?
My first thought was fun, and then I thought that you would make me do it. So I'm going to go with not fun.
Better chance he makes you do it, though.
Does anyone around here want to try 11,000 calories a day and tell us whether it is fun or not?
Brendan Fraser, my God.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes.
It's not just the fat. I feel like this is a dick move also because I struggle with this as well. It's the hair. He used to have luscious lettuce, and now that's it's just he needs to spend money on that.
He did have flowing
He
locks.
spent it all on food.
He is it is, I can only describe it as alarming. Would anybody be willing here to sign up for I wouldn't make anybody do it for a week, but
Roy's got this. One day, Roy, come on.
One day, 11,000 calories, and you come in the next day and you just tell us, is that enough of a sample to have to have a reading on no, says Billy.
No, we're not doing this because this is going to lead to another Gary and Carl meeting about a pepper again. No one's eating 11,000 calories.
He's
Sorry.
Right. He's right. I'm sorry.
Stops today.
I don't think 11,000 calories in a day is in any way dangerous. I think a lifestyle of 11,000 calories a day. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Is 11,000 calories for one day dangerous?
I mean, Dad, it has to be.
Couldn't you just be doing milkshakes?
You have to eat 10 Big Mac meals a day because I just looked it up. A Big Mac meal is 1,100 calories.
Ouch.
Good math.
That is hard.
I had to look it up on my phone. I typed it in just to make sure.
It's more than 11,000 calories. That would be 9, I think. I think 9.
I literally did it on my phone. 1,100 times 10 is 11,000. It's been a rough morning. I was like, I got to make sure before I go to air with this.
Let's see what my phone says.
Let's all do it. 1,100.
We're all going to do the math
times
on
10.
this together.
Carry the 1. I'm just filling time while
Right.
Yeah, it's 11,000.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Good job, Chris.
Did you guys see that the news, and I don't know why this is happening to us, perhaps it's because we're not on ESPN anymore, but it took about 2 weeks for the news to disseminate from that author, Matt Sullivan, coming on with us and talking about the Nets and telling us that it is not an uncommon thing for the Nets, because they run that organization, to have the organization pay for B&Bs for the women of players to have a place to stay. And Amin told us it's not that uncommon a thing as well, but it made me look back because I did not know that that was not an uncommon thing. And now it's being reported elsewhere by a variety of different people. But didn't we kill Kawhi Leonard's Uncle Dennis because he was asking for all sorts of things that are commonplace when he wanted to go to the Clippers? And I was just not aware. And I don't think the audience was aware. And I don't think most people are aware that the players can reach a place of power where they run organizations so much that the organization has a budget for just like things that they need on the side, including B&Bs. And it makes sense to me, right? If you're in a salary cap sport, Stugotz,
Yes.
and you're somebody like Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving who is making an entire economy blossom for a sports team the moment that you arrive, and specifically, if you were listening to what we did last week with the author who told us that Steve Ballmer, the Clippers for him are they're a tax write-off, that it's a $2 billion thing that allows him to just not pay taxes. If you're Uncle Dennis, of course you go in there and say, well, how badly do you want Kawhi? Ballmer, let's get a whole bunch of trinkets and things that are outside of the salary cap because you are insistent on being great at basketball, and I've got a singular thing that can make your team relevant at basketball and make it an economy.
I know it's a bit jarring to hear some of that for fans, but why would they be surprised? These guys are the best in the world at what they do. They have so much value to the organization that once they sign with that organization, yeah, they run the organization. They're the bosses. Like, why are people surprised by that? They're better at what they do than we are at what we do, than all of us, right? So why would you be surprised by that?
Stugotz, I've been working in this industry for 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that athletes are having the homes for their ladies paid for by an organization in what seems like a clear salary cap violation that would give you competitive advantages around the salary cap if you just said, hey, athlete X, you know what I've got for you? A $10 million budget outside of this to just have every single thing that you want paid for by the organization. I'm surprised by that. I'm not surprised that the players would ask for it. I'm surprised that no one has found out about it until now because it doesn't seem like when Dennis Rodman was living at the home of Mark Cuban for a while, Dennis Rodman and Mark Cuban got into trouble for that because it was a salary cap violation for Dennis Rodman to be allowed to live in the owner's mansion. There are reasons. I'm not exactly naive about rule breaking, but
Right.
I think the reason that it's newsworthy is at least in part because a whole lot of people would be surprised by that. But speaking of Rodman, and I wonder what you guys make of this. Did you see Rodman's quote on the aforementioned LeBron James that came out this weekend?
No.
Dennis Rodman said of LeBron James, quote, he doesn't have any moves. The only move he has is straight down the line. His game is too simple. Dennis Rodman saying someone else's offensive game is too simple.
His game was grabbing rebounds and putting them back in, if he did, or kicking it back out to Michael.
Not even putting them back in. I don't know that there has been a more simple offensive game in the history of the league, and certainly not in the Hall of Fame, than Dennis Rodman's. There simply can't be. Can there? Is it even possible in any way for us to have in any, never mind the Basketball Hall of Fame, in any Hall of Fame in the history of Hall of Fames in sports, is there an offensive game more simpler than the one Dennis Rodman takes into the Hall of Fame?
George Murasan.
He's not in the Hall of Fame. What Hall of Fame
You
is he
never
in?
know, Dan. In that basketball Hall of Fame, anyone might be in.
He might
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
But no, in terms of like an offensive game that was more simple than Dennis Rodman or a Murasan, I think was one of the simplest games I've ever seen. He's like the tallest player to ever play in the NBA. I think just dump it into the big guy so he can try to lay it up at the rim.
Boban, similarly. This is a question. Oh no, I guess Boban does. Yeah, Boban's got more than that. Yes, that is correct. Let me throw it out to the group here. Does anyone have an opinion they can give me? And I know this is a question we could have asked about Dennis Rodman at any point in the last 30 years. How's he doing here? I'm dead serious. Like what? Like why? Why?
What do you mean, the LeBron stuff? He's comparing him to Michael Jordan. That's what he's doing. I believe that's what he's doing. He's saying Michael Jordan was a much better offensive player, well-rounded offensive player, had more moves, had the baseline jumper, could drive to the hoop. That's what he's saying. He's not wrong.
Steve Novak.
Oh.
Steve Novak had a very simple offensive game.
Mhm.
Just stay in that corner. That was his entire career in college too. Just stand there.
You got anything for us, Stugotz? Because you fancy yourself a golf aficionado. Do you have anything for us on Colin Morikawa? Because you were telling us for a while there that it was going to be Spieth and it was going to be Ricky Fowler and that the young players were coming and they were coming to take over the sport. There was a while there where you had 3 or 4 that felt like they were coming for Tiger Woods' stuff, but now this is the only guy to do what Tiger Woods has done, where before the age of 25, he's winning a couple of majors, a couple of specific majors.
Well, the Open and the PGA Championship, to be specific, and then he's one of 3 guys to have 3 majors before the age, or I'm sorry, 2 majors in such a short span before the age of 25. So, Dan, he's doing historical stuff. To be the only guy in the same sentence as Tiger Woods in terms of winning the Open Championship and winning the PGA Championship before the age of 25 is special. And now he won his first major. There were no fans there. And I said, do it when fans are there. And fans were there at the Open Championship over the weekend. And he wasn't good in that final round. He was historically great in that final round and had so many up and downs, big up and downs to save par on a really difficult course. Now, he got a break with the weather. They all did. The weather was good. But what he has done, Dan, is historical. And I feel like when Tiger Woods was doing all this stuff, we talked about it nonstop. And I don't think anyone's given this guy enough credit, and we're not paying nearly enough attention to what it is he's doing. He's 24 years old. This is crazy.
Let's play off
when
of
fans are there, Stugotz. Come on. Do it when fans are there.
No, I said that after the PGA. Now he did it. Like
I
he
know.
shut me up and he did it. Yeah.
It's just so Stugotz, it hurts.
I think the most interesting golf story didn't come from Morikawa or anybody that was really in contention. Did you see what's going on with Cobra and Bryson DeChambeau? Yeah. Because holy cow, the quote that came from this operations manager over at Cobra after Bryson is just killing this driver. It's a driver from a club maker that sponsors him. He gets paid a lot of money to trot this out there, and he's just constantly ripping the face of the club. He hates this club. And yeah, he says it sucks, which is, pay him a lot of money. It's not something that you want to hear. So Golf Week tracked down Ben Shaman, who is the operations manager, and he gave them this quote on the record. Everybody here is bending over backwards. We've got multiple guys in R&D who are CADing. CADing is computer aid design. They're CADing this and CADing that, this and that, trying to get this to that pipeline faster. And Bryson knows it. It's just really, really painful when he says something that stupid. He's never, ever really been happy, ever. Like it's very rare when he's happy. Now he's in the place where he's swinging a 5-degree driver with 200 RPM of ball speed. Everybody is looking for a magic bullet. Well, the magic bullet becomes harder and harder to find the faster you swing and the lower your loft gets. Fighting words at the end of that one, Dan.
He also said, it's like an 8-year-old that gets mad at you. They might fly off the handle and say, I hate you. But then you go, no, you don't.
This is fascinating to me, what just happened on this show, where with no sense of irony said Stugotz said, this guy's not getting enough attention and credit, and boom, we go straight to the soap opera.
See what I'm saying?
We like shifted. It's so
and
much,
they're right, by the way.
It's so much easier
right.
to talk about the stuff that is.
Did you see what Brooks Koepka said?
Yeah.
Oh, what he said. He was in contention.
Here we
again.
go. Here we go.
I love my driver. My driver's great. I had a really good day because my driver was so great.
You guys don't think that coming off of what happened just last week with Stephen A. Smith and Ohtani and all of the stuff that we've been talking about for a year that seeps into sports and stop Asian hate, and do guys need to look a certain way for America to embrace them? Do they have to speak a certain way? Is the language barrier something that is responsible, that the foreigners, that the others have to climb over the language barrier for us, the fan, to become the kind of famous in America that their excellence deserves and demands? it is interesting to me that we arrive in the place, because you're right. It is so much easier to talk about that and the pettiness of that,
course.
especially given the work that all of these people do, Stugotz, to make sure that club is right. And you're hearing someone quoted saying, is that guy ever happy about anything? Is that guy ever happy? And it is something that I do believe, like, I don't know what to say about the excellence beyond that it's excellent.
I think the interesting thing, he's 24 years old. He's from LA, Dan, and he himself has said, we all waited, like, how would Tiger Woods really affect the future of golf? And Morikawa is saying he worked so hard because he wanted to be the next Tiger Woods. So you're seeing it right in front of your eyes right now.
Well, what happened to all the guys, Stugotz? It felt like there were 4 or 5 of them that you have anointed.
Well,
the
Spieth
next
was right there. I mean, Fowler's gone through, it's been like a bumpy year for him. He actually had a decent tournament. Spieth was right there yesterday.
But Fowler will not. It can be said flatly now that he leaves that conversation. Fowler's got a bunch of top 10s, but Fowler doesn't win stuff.
It's Spieth, Justin Thomas, and DJ. DJ's won a few majors. Spieth has won 3 majors. Justin Thomas, I think, has won 2 majors. They're in every single tournament. Those guys are still there. We didn't know that Morikawa was going to come out of nowhere, and no one saw Brooks Koepka coming. So those guys are added to the mix.
I feel like there's someone missing here. That there's
Rory.
He's a little bit
He was
older,
considered
yeah.
that. What's his name, Stugotz?
Rory McIlroy.
That is
There
where
was the
his-
Jason Days of the world
Gets
too.
me,
There's been a
man.
bunch of them, man.
That is where your dyslexia always trips. That is the speed bump
McIlroy.
that always gets you. Rory.
McIlroy. I get it?
Yeah.
I didn't think about it. I wasn't thinking about it. Wow.
This is not the thing that ever happens to Stugotz, where the thing that trips him up is the thinking.
Are you guys worried about Aaron Rodgers like I am?
Every day I worry about him.
I feel like this is none of my business. I'm just going to come right out and say that on the front end. I feel like involving myself in his personal relationships and engagement and possible secret marriage is none of my concern, right? I'm a little worried, though, because there was an interview with Shailene Woodley where she said she had not watched a football game before meeting Aaron Rodgers. And I find that impossible to believe. Did you not have PE class? Like, you never seen the Super Bowl? Like, how have you not seen football before Aaron Rodgers? And furthermore, like, do you not shop for insurance? Like, you've never seen State Farm commercials? I feel like maybe he surrounds himself with people that, not him in particular, but like it's hard for like celebrities and people of note to not be surrounded by people that like know them for what they do and like just fawn over them, right? But I feel like this might be an overcorrection, right? Like you have to have seen football before Aaron Rodgers, right?
She was like a child star, Billy. I could actually believe this. She grew up in California and was acting from a young age. She was probably very into like the musical theater acting lifestyle. Didn't have a lot of time to watch the Super Bowl. I believe it.
I mean, Greece, do they not have a football team in the high school where Greece takes place? Like, I'm sorry. I find it impossible to believe. And also, like, let's say you're 29 or whatever age she is, right? And you just come upon football right away. Do you like look at it like in awe, like, oh my God, like what are they doing over there? Like that ball that's shaped weird. Like, wow, look at the coordination. Like, explain this to me. Like you just come upon football and you didn't know that this was going on and that your boyfriend / fiance / husband is like great at it.
The quote is, I don't know him as a football guy. I know him as like the nerd who wants to host Jeopardy. That's the dude I know. And I heard a caged chicken, a muffled fraud from a caged chicken back there somewhere. And I see that Whittingham wants to get in on the fun. I also don't know where Stugotz is. He was counting his money the first hour, and now he's just simply left, maybe just pleased with himself because he invented that a pirate kicked a baseball on a play we were talking about against his team.
I feel like there's a little Stugotz in Woodley. She could have just said, oh, I'm not a big football fan, but she flew by and she's like, never seen a game, never even seen a football before in my entire life.
Took a lie 3 steps too far. How is it even you mentioned a child star? There's no universe that you can live in. I understand if she's from Australia, that's one thing. But an American born actress was never around a Super Bowl party ever once. That's impossible. It is impossible to have gone through life, be in your 20s, and have never been invited to a Super Bowl party, never been near a Super Bowl party, and even at a Super Bowl party where people aren't caring about football. There's always the one play where everyone turns around, oh yeah, football, and they go back to what they were doing otherwise. Like there is not a universe in which an American-born child could not have experienced a football game once.
I also kind of question, and again, this isn't our place to do, but now that we're here, I kind of question the whole, I know him as like this nerdy Jeopardy guy. Like where in Hollywood circles are you hanging out where there's just nerdy Jeopardy people that have access to you? Because the people that have access to you in Hollywood are football players, okay? Like we're not going somewhere where it's like, oh, here's the Jeopardy section of this party. That's not how this goes when you're on a list and stuff like that. It's NFL players, it's professional athletes, it's Hollywood stars. Were you at like an agency party? Do you guys have the same agent? And you're like, oh, well, how did you get in? It's like, well, I just really like Jeopardy. So they let me into this big Hollywood soiree.
That's not true, Billy. Like, actresses and actors hang out with other artists. Like, they hang out with musicians, like costume designers, painters, like all types of different artists. They don't just hang out with, like, Jared Goff at a party. That's not what these parties are like. They're all in, like, this... They're in a scene. That's why it's called, like, a scene, you know? Like, scene.
But Ken Jennings is not an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jeopardy.
Aaron Rodgers isn't Ken Jennings.
The Jeopardy category had one person in it for 45 years, and they're trying to replace him now. Like there is not all these Jeopardy hosts around because there is only one Jeopardy host.
If Ken Jennings was built like a football player and looked like Aaron Rodgers, he might be invited to these parties. Aaron Rodgers also hangs out with other actors and actresses. Like he's got connections. That's how he gets to the parties. Not just because he's a football player. Like
Wait,
Well,
why
I
does
mean-
he have those connections?
Okay,
He's
it is
a
'cause he's
football player.
But I mean, he's not going to the party as I'm the quarterback of the Packers. He's going
Yes,
to the
he
party.
is.
He's like, I'm a part of this scene. I'm
I'm
famous.
spokesperson for State Farm. Get out of here. I want to host.
No,
Now he's getting into these parties.
Billy, when you're in the scene, you don't have to say what you do. People just know who you are.
Ken Jennings is not in the scene.
But if
is
she
the point of
doesn't, but
this.
if she doesn't know football, she's never watched a football game in her life. How would she know who Aaron Rodgers is?
Because she met him at a party and she was like, oh, what does that guy do? Oh, yeah, he was on Jeopardy last night. I don't know.
There is the remainder of the quote was, quote, I've yet to go to a football game, and before I met him, I had never seen one football game before. I just didn't really grow up with sports, especially American sports. It never really was on my radar. Guillermo, put it on the poll what Whittingham said. Is there a universe where an American-born person couldn't have seen a single football game? And also, let's just replay the sound that we wrestled away from ESPN of Keegan-Michael Key meeting Olivia Munn and then realizing that Aaron Rodgers was near Olivia Munn. And this somehow is what happens when someone does know who Aaron Rodgers is.
I was leaving my office one day at Sunset Gower Studios, and I went over to visit a friend of mine who was shooting on the TV show The Newsroom with Jeff Daniels. And I'm looking down the way, and I see Olivia Munn, the beautiful Olivia Munn. She sees me, and I see her, and she beelines for me.
Yes.
And she comes up, she goes, hi, I'm Liv, and I'm a big fan of your work. And I said, and I'm Keegan, I'm a big fan of your work and your face and everything else. and everything else that's standing right here, I'm a big fan of. And then there's this big kind of hulky, kind of hunky guy
Aaron
standing next to her.
Rodgers.
I'm not paying attention. She goes, oh, I'd like you to meet my boyfriend, Aaron.
No.
All of a sudden, I couldn't care less who Olivia Munn was. I'm like, I just like look at the guy and I go, I don't even say hello. I just go, NFC North, and then I fall down.
Yes, that's a better
That was
story.
it.
Yes.
And then a week later we have dinner together. So that made it even better. And then about 6 months after that, he does our Super Bowl special.
Another quote from Woodley before Rodgers. She dated a rugby player, and she said, quote, I fall in love with human beings based on who they are, not based on what they do or what sex they are.
Poppycock.
I guarantee if I texted every person in my cell phone contact list, I don't even want to say this because now you guys are going to make me do it. I would find at least one person who has not watched a full football game. Yes, they're aware of what football is. They know what a football is, but they've not seen a football game. There's at least one. There's someone out there.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Have you ever known anyone who uses the word poppycock? Yes or no?
Have you seen what's been going on with Olivia Munn? Because her name is getting dragged through all sorts of tabloids and internet gossip. She's being called a homewrecker because she is reportedly dating John Mulaney, who has since emerged after a very brief residency at the Troubadour in Los Angeles, announced a brief tour. That special has got to be incredible that he's working on right now because of his now estranged marriage that's headed towards divorce. And there is a very clear public relations campaign being painted right now in front of the media, and the fact that he went to rehab. He had problems with cocaine, and he had a whole bunch of life stuff. That kind of surprised a lot of people, I felt, because of just his general delivery.
Was it the suit? Was it simply that he performs in a suit that people couldn't have imagined that in rehab?
Well, his whole act is that he's a square. So to go from that to cocaine rehab.
Where
which is
do
like
I
a
buy the cocaine? You haven't
Two cocaines, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so. Is it the suit or the act?
It's his voice.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
neitve
It's his voice, really.
that you can't imagine that being cocaine.
I'm looking for booger sugar.
I've got to admit that I too was surprised by that, and I don't know exactly why I was surprised by that. It can be all those things. It could be the voice and the suit, and it could be the act. It could be all of it.
Just all of him.
Yeah, but then I processed everything because I too was surprised because of said voice, and I realized, oh, wildly popular stand-up comedian. That's a hard life. Yeah, I could see how cocaine dependency comes out of that.
And so, what are the specifics? I mean, the internet is cruel. So, like,
Well, his soon-to-be ex-wife made it very clear that this was John's decision. I can't even imagine what it must be like for her as she's going through.
that was rare. The statement where it's not mutually amicable. It is rare in celebrity that the statement coming out is, well, we're happy from publicists. We're going different directions. Where one person is clearly publicly hurt and just tells everybody, look, my heart is broken here. I was not expecting any of this.
Puts it on John. This was John's decision. And then the internet gossip starts that John Mulaney and Olivia Munn are dating, and then people run wild with that stuff, probably fueled by pretty good sources, I would imagine. And now you've got John Mulaney. I think he's got that special. I didn't say it as a joke. It's going to be massive because he was one of these. There aren't very many rock star comedians that can maybe sell out an arena. Sebastian's kind of low-key one of those guys. But Mulaney was right there. Comedian, popular, smart, witty, and was becoming he has a new special out. You got to see it. It was appointment television. And now, next level, transcending with this bit of controversy and the rehab stint. I can't imagine what it's going to be like.
This is a terrible thing to say, but that is a good career move.
What, cocaine?
In terms of making yourself more famous.
He's becoming more notorious.
Famous, infamous, the combination of them.
Yeah, there's a bit of there's darkness there. There's danger there. There's people are drawn to this type of energy. What I want to hear what he has to say. Is he going to address this? Is he going to keep it private? I didn't read any reports of what his residency was like at the Troubadour, but I imagine he always taps into his life experiences and his comedy.
What are you doing? Any pub is good pub? Is that kind of where you're headed?
Just famous and infamous, talented, and now dating famously, like all that combination. Woodley said she was taken aback. Like, she lives in Hollywood, sees what fame looks like. She said she was taken aback at what happened to her life the moment it became known that Aaron Rodgers was in it. Once you start merging those people, I remember that reading something about Matt Damon talking about how Brad Pitt envied Matt Damon because Matt Damon occasionally, and this was in the age of paparazzi, which was crazier than it is now. I think some of that has dissipated, but now it's just sort of been replaced by internet gossip. It's been replaced by something else. It's not quite paparazzi, although it still is.
Now everybody can be a paparazzi.
Overseas. And I remember Brad Pitt articulating an envy of Matt Damon because he had married not famous, and he could occasionally walk somewhere without being bothered, because by marrying Angelina Jolie, what happens is you supersize the fame, you supersize all of the stuff that happens around that. And so now drag impropriety scandal, we can talk about you, we could gossip. You just saw what happened in the segment we were talking about, where we're trying to talk about simply the art or the excellence of a golfer, and immediately the soap opera catches our attention and we're talking about something else. If you start adding multiples of fame, and I mean, first of all, didn't he just listening to me now when I tell you rehab and now this, didn't he just get more interesting to you?
100%. Yes.
His art was plenty interesting. He's funny to listen to, but now it's not just funny, and it's not just square. And you got to imagine, Stugotz, one of the things that I was really looking forward to after seeing you heard me marvel at Louis C.K. going on Saturday Night Live, braver than Bill Burr during what already feels like a different time, and hitting pedophilia and Palestine, and there was some third topic, like he just went after rail. He went after rail after rail, and he did it deftly. I was so looking forward to what the creative evolution of Louis C.K. was going to be coming out of that. But he can't come out of that, or he hasn't been able to come out of that. So I am looking forward to whatever, man, comedy is produced. It's the dark arts. Like, that is a space where pain births all sorts of art. So yes, I'm looking forward to see what that births, how honest it is, and if he can find the funny in it at a time that it's so damn hard to find the funny, Stugotz. It takes so much talent right now to find the funny, just because your audience is going into the arena with this film of sadness and sickness and scared, like everything that's happening around us. We're so desperate to laugh, but everyone's got some sort of depression on them just by, the world feels like it's caving in on you.
Don't you think that saying that someone has a drug addiction makes them more interesting is kind of dangerous, though? Like, is it not in a sense glorifying that, or even like legitimizing the trope that someone has to have something difficult that they go through to be interesting or to be like funny or to impress us more?
For me, it's the juxtaposition of, wait a minute, I thought you were something different because of the packaging. Like your whole act was something that was totally different. I don't know. Did Tiger Woods get more interesting with sex addiction and drug addiction and going from famous to infamous, from somebody who could do who could also give us an inspirational tale? Man, we love a redemption story. We love a redemption story.
Yeah, but I think what Jess is saying is she's concerned, like you're saying, hey, do drugs, you're more interesting. Go to rehab, you're more, and you're not saying that, but it does make you more interesting.
I'm saying scandal, all of it. I'm saying humanity, mistakes. I'm saying you're not just a suit and a voice and an act. There's something else there that's human and flawed.
So to close the loop, Shailene Woodley's full of shit, right?
HBO does the best stuff that you will find, Stugotz. And so it's not surprising to hear that Back on the Record with Bob Costas is coming out Friday, July 30th at 11 p.m. Eastern. And I'm sure it will be excellent because HBO and Bob Costas they don't do things that aren't excellent. It'll be available to stream on HBO Max, but it's going to start on HBO. Bob Costas joins us now. Thank you, as always, Bob, for making the time. And before I ask you about some of the things going on in the world, what are you eager to say and tackle here that you haven't already eagerly said and tackled? Because you've done everything in this industry. So with this show, what is the inspiration for wanting to do this, and what do you want to accomplish with it?
Dan, I'm not trying to check a box that I previously haven't checked. At this point in my career, I don't want to work as hard or be on as often as I used to be. That wouldn't be appropriate for a number of personal and professional reasons. You know, you have a prime chunk of your career, but if you're still capable of doing some things, then you should do them in kind of a different fashion. So I just want to go back to the things that I most enjoy doing. Later this week, I'm going to do 2 Red Sox-Yankees games, and they're actually letting us back in the ballpark. So Jim Cott and I will do the games from Fenway Park. I just enjoy doing baseball. I know the audience for that is much smaller than when I did the World Series and other things. And certainly everything you do on HBO is to a boutique type of audience, specific audience. But as you said, HBO is known for quality, and that includes HBO Sports. The title of the show tells you that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. The title of the show is Back on the Record. The show I used to have 15 years ago or so on HBO was called On the Record. I hated to leave HBO, but at that time, the hierarchy there understandably said, you got to choose. You can't be on 2 cable networks. And the baseball network had just come into existence, and they wanted me to be part of it, and I have now for more than a decade. So I chose baseball, but it was a really difficult choice because of all the things you said, because of the quality of HBO and the working environment. So now circumstances have changed. They came back to me and said, what would you like to do? I said, I don't want to do it weekly. I don't want to do it monthly. Let's do it quarterly. And that was the idea. Then COVID pushed back what were to have been the first 2 shows this year. So we're going to get 4 of them in, just to get 4 in 2021 in consecutive months, starting in July through October. And then next year it'll become quarterly. So the sorts of things that you would expect. One-on-one interviews that have some substance but also are entertaining. There'll be panel discussions. There'll be some commentary. And unlike situations where I'm on someone else's show, here I'll be able to control the content 100%. So there you go.
Bob, what a great place for you to arrive at, though, where you're picking and choosing what it is you want to do and when you want to do it.
You've been there for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been at that space in my head for a while. In fact, before things got a little bit sideways at NBC, they're better now, I'm happy to say, but before they got a little sideways, the whole idea was that I would have an emeritus role, like Tom Brokaw had for many years in news. I would be that to sports. So I had intended, when I signed my last contract with NBC in 2012, I had intended that the 2016 Olympics would be my last, that eventually I'd stop being on Sunday Night Football, and I'd move into the mode that I'm pretty much in now.
Are you going to have correspondence? What are you going to be doing with others?
Generally speaking, we won't have correspondence. But if there's a situation that calls for something to be reported, then we will turn to people, I don't want to mention names now, but recognizable people with real credentials in sports journalism to do those kinds of pieces that I used to do on the record and that they do on Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, if it's called for in an individual instance.
Stugotz was saying here before you came on, he was talking about, he was saying that it's impossible to enforce what happened at the Red Sox-Yankees game here, where the fan who threw a baseball at the left fielder is now banned from all baseball games everywhere in the United States. He cannot go to Major League Baseball games, professional baseball games. What do you think should happen there? What do you make of what happened this weekend in baseball, both with the postponement of Padres-Nationals because there were gunshots nearby, and in general with the hostility that fans seem to have toward players in basketball and elsewhere where they're throwing things at the entertainers?
Well, on the second one about the Padres-Nationals, as we know, it's unrelated to the game itself, unrelated to baseball. It just happened outside the ballpark, and that's part of the spate of gun violence that is all over the country, and guns are one part of it, yes, but you could have however hundreds of millions of guns we have in this country, and this is not a pro-NRA statement. Some of it has to do with the attitudes of those with the guns, the disregard for life, the sheer depravity that we see being played out in too many instances. Now, when it comes to fans, there's always been unruly fan behavior, but for whatever reason, post-pandemic, I don't know that it's fully behind us, but people are back in the arenas and ballparks. Some of it obviously has to do, and I'm not a psychologist or sociologist, but some of it has to do with some sort of pent-up emotion or resentment that built up during the worst days of COVID. But I would also think that it has to do with social media and the way we talk about sports now. You know, somebody mentioned the other day, and I knew it, but I hadn't thought about it. Jerry West, Mr. Clutch, played in 8 or 9 NBA Finals with the Lakers, and his team won only one of them. And his West Virginia team lost the NCAA championship by a single point. Would Jerry West be Mr. Clutch today, or would people be haranguing on him the way they're haranguing on Chris Paul now? That sort of toxic tone, not like we hope our team wins, but we demand our team wins. And we'll hold extremely accomplished people to impossible standards of perfection, and then a Twitter mob of some kind will descend upon them, usually ignorantly, for the slightest misstep or perceived misstep. All of those things, you know, create a witch's brew where people think they're able to act out in any way they want. I don't know how effective what you mentioned is going to be, that this guy who threw the baseball into Verdugo's back is banned for life. They're going to have facial recognition at every ballpark in the major leagues. What if the guy puts on a disguise? Or is there a list, like a no-fly zone? You got to show an ID. Now, is everybody going to have to show an ID plus their ticket to get into the ballpark? You have to show up 3 hours before the game.
I feel like Bob was blaming me there for everything.
I mean, you're the public voice that's very vicious to Chris Paul.
Well, I just want him to win. I mean, win a title. If you want to call him one of the great point guards of all time, Bob, you got to win an NBA championship. Right now, in the Hall of Fame, he's in that Allen Iverson room, Bob, and where I want him to move to, okay, is the Isaiah Thomas Magic Johnson room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, look, that's a legitimate
With the
point.
greats, too. Thanks.
That's a legitimate point. Those things can all be discussed. You know, if we're talking about Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams way back, you know, Williams has his advantages over DiMaggio. One of the advantages DiMaggio has over Williams is all the world championships, and Ted's Red Sox only won one pennant. But we used to not blame that on single people. You know, what you just mentioned, Stugotz, is a legitimate sports conversation. What I'm talking about more is the tone of a lot of it. That's all.
Are fans meaner, or do they just have more access?
I think it's both. I think that when we talk about social media and the worst of it, it's a meeting ground, but it also then quickly becomes a breeding ground where these kind of attitudes are amplified and even validated. Again, there's not any one factor, and I'm not a sociologist, but all these things are factors that go into creating some kind of witch's brew of circumstances that leads, at its worst individual instances, leads to the worst stuff that we've seen.
Do you find yourself, Bob, because I know this is happening to me, I've got a great life. I'm otherwise pretty happy, but the last couple of years have felt like a sickness. I am scared. I see, and I don't know whether it's just getting old. Like every generation has its issues. I'm sure it wasn't very pleasant to be living during World War II, but I just find myself carrying around a low level of anxiety, or what I imagine depression feels like if you're locked in it all the time, just because I'm scared of everything that's happening in the world.
Well, we're more aware of it. That's obvious. When everything, or seemingly everything, it really is only a small fraction of what goes on, but a larger fraction than we used to see is available on video or is reported about because somebody sees it and puts it on social media, then mainstream media picks up on it if they find it interesting. I think we are confronted by more of what is anxiety-provoking and concerning and even horrifying in the world. We're confronted by more of it than we used to be.
You're a 19-time Emmy winner. Is any one of them more important to you than the other?
The first one. The first one I got was sometime in the mid-'80s. And at that time, the Sports Emmy Awards were televised. And they would have, Robert Klein would be the host or a presenter. And one year, Dennis Hopper, I remember, was a presenter. It was kind of a cool thing. And Alan Thicke was the host. And everybody dressed up. This was like a black tie thing, not just suits. It was like the Academy Awards or the Emmys, cocktail dresses, black tie, the whole deal. And I was nominated in the same category as Al Michaels and Dick Enberg, some of the real reigning giants of the industry at that time. And somehow I won. And that was tremendous validation. It was just, wow, how did this happen? To even be nominated with these people would have been great. So the first one is the one I remember best, I guess.
As awkward and clumsy and unprofessional as my transition was from apocalyptic fear to asking him about Emmys, what did Stugotz just text you, Mike, that while Bob Costas was talking, very eloquently about the things that are producing anxiety in America and beyond, what did he text you?
Yeah, during your enlightened conversation, I got a text from Stugotz that said Todd Gurley Ravens, to which we all had to search for what he meant because there's no report saying that Todd Gurley signed with the Ravens. He was just texting me about a visit Todd Gurley is presently having with the Baltimore Ravens.
According to Adam Schefter, I think it's a 1-year deal now, Mike. So he gets a chance to prove himself again. Right, it's a big deal, Mike. Todd Gurley to the Ravens.
Prove it. I love a
1-year prove it deal.
What did you want to ask Costas?
Bob, I'm wondering, because you won so many of those awards, when did you arrive at getting bored with winning Emmys?
I guess I should say the boilerplate things. It's always a thrill. It's always an honor to be nominated. The last couple of times they did it virtually, and I'm doing less, and I don't think I was nominated any of those times. Would have been easier to skip out when they do it virtually as opposed to having to show up. But one of the best things about the Emmys is that you're in the presence of all the other people who you know and generally respect in the industry. So that kind of get together is an important thing. But as I said, I'm not jaded about it, Stugotz, but it's different when you're 34, 35 years old and it's your first one as opposed to when it's happened a few times before.
Update. Even though Stugotz just cited an Adam Schefter tweet, there is no such tweet. We are still scrambling to confirm what Stugotz meant by Todd Gurley Ravens.
$5 for reading
it's out there, Mike.
$5 for reading the internet wrong. I love this juxtapostion of the best broadcaster in the world with the worst broadcaster in the world.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
By the way, update. And I say this only to make another point because it doesn't matter to me. It's 29 Emmys, Stugotz, not 19.
I'm sorry.
You're off by double digits, but here's the point I'm making. People, quote, research through Wikipedia or whatever. I saw it somewhere. I saw a release somewhere. I saw something on Twitter. Now, this is inconsequential. My Emmy total is inconsequential. But you realize how many people actually with certitude are armed with information that is 100% not credible. And you know what one of the biggest aspects of this is whenever someone says something that gets someone else's nose out of joint, then comes the headline. Dan Lebitard goes on rant or tirade. And it's completely out of context, doesn't take into account all the qualifiers that he or I may have said, and then a small portion of it becomes part of the story that follows the clickbait headline, and then 1,000 people comment on it with the absolute assurance that they know exactly what Dan Lebitard said, and they know exactly what they can extrapolate from that to make whatever other point they want to make, and you realize then you're in a house of mirrors.
I mean, it says 19 on the sheet of paper in front of me. Chris, you want to button that shit up, man. It's a bad look, man.
It was a fake Sports Center tweet that Stugotz got fooled by.
That's unfortunate. They should sign Todd Gurley, though. A motivated Gurley, 1-year deal, man. A prove it deal, Dano.
Bob, what do you sound, and you are someone who is very professional. You sound like you find it a little bit wearying, everything that's happening with journalism, sports journalism, facts, all of it?
Yeah, a little bit. But I think, especially if you've been lucky enough, as I have, to have had a career that you only could have dreamed of, and now you're just trying to do, on a limited basis, the things that are truest to you, the best you can hope for is you kind of annex your own little patch of ground. And on this patch of ground, I'm going to do what I do the way I want to do it. And to fair-minded people who actually watch it in full, it'll speak for itself. But I can't turn this whole thing around. You know, it's like trying to turn an ocean liner around in a bathtub. You just can't do it.
How about the general state of not sports journalism, but journalism, Bob? As you have seen some of these giants, you've seen the entire industry change. Well, it was years and years ago, Jon Stewart replaced the network anchorman as America's most trusted news source. And that was years and years ago. Everything has changed, another full revolution since then. The state of journalism, as newspapers die and checks and balances die and billionaires ride their phallic symbols into space, and Stugotz reads fake Sports Center tweets, and I get fooled by the internet on whether Disney was putting up graphics that were putting up Rotten Tomato scores on Warner Brothers for the Space Jam movie. The state of journalism, as Bob Costas views it, the decay of it, you make what of it?
Well, I think that a lot of good journalism still goes on in broadcast and print precincts. A lot of it still goes on. But there's so much stuff out there, and now the new technology, and it's not all that new anymore, allows people, if they choose, to select their own bubbles and their own echo chambers. So it isn't even necessarily that what they're getting there is always untrue, but it's a selective truth. Fox News, for example, learned or relearned what they already knew, which is that their audience doesn't want to hear anything, even if it's as obviously true as 2 + 2 is 4, anything that would indicate that Donald Trump is perhaps not worthy of their undying devotion. And so when on election night they simply acknowledged the truth that Biden had won, a portion of their audience migrated to even Trumpier places, Newsmax and OAN. So now Fox realizes, look, we're McDonald's. We're not going to serve you pizza or sushi. This is what you came for. So on Fox News, not everything that's said is untrue. Some of it is straight news reporting, and some of it makes legitimate points from a legitimate conservative perspective. But what they will never acknowledge is the giant elephant in the room, the truth about the unreality and the delusional world of Donald Trump that so many people have bought into. Because if they acknowledge that in a straightforward way, which you don't have to be a Democrat or liberal to see, the numbers of longtime conservative media people, longtime conservative and Republican politicians, the people who have worked closely with Trump both before and during his presidency, all the books that have come out about him, most of those are not coming from left-wing directions. They're coming from clear-eyed people who are centrists or right of center all their lives, but they see this craziness. If Fox were to acknowledge that, or the other various places in right-wing talk radio, whatever, if all those places were just to acknowledge it, which is at this point like acknowledging that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, it would cost them audience, period. So is everything said on those outlets untrue? No. But they are ignoring a substantial truth because it doesn't fit their business model. And that's true on the other side as well. It's just not true to the same extent. And most importantly, it's not true about a former president of the United States who still holds sway over a huge portion of the electorate, which makes it, even if you can find something that sort of is the same way on the other side, it makes it much more consequential because of the impact it's had on the country and could continue to have on the country.
Back on the record with Bob Costas. He does it better than just about anybody who's ever done it. Debuts Friday, July 30th, 11 p.m. Eastern. You will get it on HBO Max streaming. You will get it on HBO. Looking forward to it, Bob. Always appreciate the time, sir. Good luck with that show. I know it's going to be great.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Stugotz. Are things going well on the pirate ship?
It is okay. Stugotz continues to provide content for us by doing things like he just did in the middle of the. May he never
You're
stop.
welcome.
May he
Yep.
never stop doing that. Can't wait to make fun of him in the next segment. Yes, though we're enjoying the same freedom you're talking about. We're enjoying carving out a little space for ourselves that where we could do what we want.
Yeah, and good for you. Just keep this in mind. You need plenty of orange juice because all those pirates got scurvy aboard the pirate ship. You know, they're sailing and sailing for months and months. Their provisions run low, and they get scurvy because they got no vitamin C.
I married Scurvy. It's my co-host. Thank you, Bob, for being on with us. Appreciate it.
Hey.
See ya.
This might be a surprising admission for you guys to hear from me, but I'm not actually that smart, and I'm not actually that good at this. What I just do is surround myself with people who can make it look that way. Whether it's my father or either Cody, long lineage of Codys that birth content, whether it's Stugotz, I decided early on. I heard Bob Costas talking on television, on Letterman, and said, okay, can't be that good. Gonna go another route. Gonna try something different. Let me see if I can surround myself with people who do some of what Chris Cody and Stugotz have done today. That Emmy mistake on the show sheet, that belongs to Chris Cody. Chris Cody's having a hell of a day. It is not his worst moment today. I believe his
He was
worst,
off by 10.
His worst moment today. I love that Bob corrected us, though. That was so great. Such a great flex. And blamed you when I'm the one who brought it up because I was reading from the research that was incorrect.
The 1 and the 2, very close on the computer.
It's typically how it goes.
Not Chris Cody's worst moment today. What is the context that this moment needs? Because I marveled. This is how I described it when it happened. If you were not with us in the local hour, first of all, I thought it was the first thing. I thought it was how Chris Cody began his work week on the air with us, roaring out of the weekend.
The Bob Costas research was how I started.
Roaring out of the 3-day weekend, first time on air. Chris Cody, the way that I described it earlier is it couldn't have been worse if we had stormed into his house at 4 a.m., surprised him while he was sleeping by holding a microphone in his face and just slapping him across the face and getting his first thoughts on whatever. I believe it would have been more coherent than what happened. What is the context that this sound needs, Mike?
Dan, the context that you seek is we were talking about the weird thing that's happening around the Miami Heat, or at least weird compared to the recent history, which is people are leaving the organization now. Dwayne Wade and Craig assistants. It used to be that Dave Fizdale would stay with the organization for years, rebuffing overtures for even head coaching jobs. Now assistants are leaving. The name was uttered. Fizdale was uttered just prior to Chris Cody trying to scan
he couldn't
his brain
find
for
it.
the name.
What was the thing that you said from Tahoe? I was trying to think, but it wasn't working, or something. It was a great.
We've all been there.
It was a great. It was a great quote where you just said your mind was malfunctioning in a really oafish way. Let's see what we have here from earlier today, and we will now have a competitive. We're going to pair this against what happened to Stugotz during the Costas interview. And you guys, the audience, tell us which one was more unprofessional as a moment.
They realized Spo's never leaving. You know, I feel like, what's his name had a...
Exactly. Keep going. Just keep... Bite through it.
No, let's just end the segment right there.
He was so happy with himself.
There was roughly 2.5 seconds of silence, which
then followed.
Felt like an hour.
It was 4 total seconds that ended with the dismount of a curse word. I want to pair that against what it is, the tapestry that Costas was just weaving. Let's put it again next to it.
Right now, in the Hall of Fame, he's in that Allen Iverson room, Bob. Right now, in the Hall of Fame, he's in that Allen Iverson room, Bob. Oh, God.
Let's play them next to each other.
Let's play that one. Let's just keep playing that one.
Which one? Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo. Which one of the moments was more unprofessional? Stugotz trying to talk to Bob Costas, or Chris Cody trying to remember Fizdale's name?
They realized Spo's never leaving. You know, I feel like, what's his name had a...
Exactly. Keep going. Just keep... Bite through it.
No, let's just end the segment right there. And then there's Stugotz, who immediately, as soon as we went to commercial, he started saying, man, the summer months are the hardest for me. It's so much lacrosse.
Costas makes me nervous. There's a lot of things going on.
I want you to imagine at any point in Costas's career while winning 29 Emmys, imagine something coming out of his mouth that sounded like this.
Right now, in the Hall of Fame, he's in that Allen Iverson room, Bob. AI.
In that as the kids call them. I love that that is on the heels of you chewing on your tongue, typing with both index fingers to get tricked by a fake SportsCenter account to text me Todd Gurley Ravens in the middle of the interview.
Whittingham, give me some of the specifics before we pair these again against each other again, because it's true. It sounds like a combination. If you can play the Stugotz sound back again, I want you to imagine two things happening here in the middle of Stugotz trying to get this thought out for Costas. One is him being tased while chewing on the side of his tongue, which is halfway out of his mouth, and then him immediately having a seizure as well.
Right now in the Hall of Fame, he's in that Allen Iverson room, Bob.
Whittingham, what happened with the fake account that fooled?
It's just, so he says it was Adam Schefter. So I look at Adam Schefter's Twitter account, couldn't find anything. And so Jess went and tracked down the tweet. Here are the red flags on this account. One, the handle, Spots Centra, like the Canadian Sports Center.
But not sports?
Spots Centra.
But you realize you can read that very, very quickly and think it's.
Mistake number one. Mistake number two. There was no check mark. It was that thing that people do to try and fool people of the white circle that kind of looks like the check mark, but is not. Sign number three, the avatar, it's the SportsCenter logo, but in fairly sizable print above it is the word not. Not a SportsCenter. There are three signs. Also, Tony pointed out a fourth, which is that the picture used of Todd Gurley is him in a Rams uniform when he was just in a Falcons uniform. All the red flags, and yet Stugotz is still going. Todd Gurley, Ravens, buddy.
Shefty.
Was Schefter referenced anywhere in the fake account?
He just assumed he attributed a fake report to a real reporter because it's in the NFL, and yeah, Shefty probably has got it.
These things are going to happen to you one day, Whittingham, and I promise you, I will
Wait a
not be
second.
so mean when they do.
Whittingham, it's not like Twitter was something from your generation.
Right.
Twitter was born while Chris Whittingham was an adult, or close to it anyways. You don't just start getting tricked by it more. I feel like you have the life experience to know that I got to look for the verified check mark at least.
You were fake Tony Dungy.
Juju just texted me to remind me that Chris Whittingham sent the text to our group on Saturday with the LeBron James fake lower third that Dan was tricked by. So I
just thought that was funny.
Law thickens.
You fool. Are you guys ready for funniest thing from the sports weekend and Stugotz's weekend observations? We've got to get to these. I don't think that I'm allowed to skate unscathed through the mockery of Stugotz and Chris Whittingham as the guy who decided to report an Aaron Rodgers stat from Barry McCockiner. Like, that is not something that I get to escape after. There are any number of places I could have gotten that stat. That's where I chose to get it. So I am not somebody who's allowed. Again, it's just matters of degrees. Just surround yourself with people who are going to make it's great life advice for all of you out there. If you can achieve it,
yes.
just surround yourself, not surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, which is the customary advice. Surround yourself with people who are going to make worse mistakes than you so that you could appear to be slightly smarter.
But it feels great when you've made the last big mistake and then someone else let you off the hook with their big mistake, right? Like, it feels fantastic. There is nothing better. It's an underrated feeling, man.
Okay, so let's go back to that. We were also able to wrestle this away from ESPN somehow. We were able to wrestle away the Barry McCockiner sound. He led a game-tying drive and never got the ball back again. This is from Barry McCockiner. Never got the ball again.
No, that can't be his name. I dumped it.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you just fell for something.
Good call, Mike.
Ah! That is one of my favorite show sounds of all time.
It's so good.
It tells a story.
So good.
Yeah.
Roy's
the light.
Roy, you tell me whether Roy is laughing or being pushed off of a very high pool deck. I pushed. He led a game-tying drive and never got the ball back again. This is from Barry McCockiner. Never got the ball again.
No, that can't be his name. I dumped it.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you just fell for something.
Good call, Mike.
Ah! 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 Ah!
It was a belly flop into the pool.
I think I found my new weekend observations transition sound.
It sounds like Roy was just peering, the very highest of the diving boards that Roy was just peering, and then somebody pushed him in
Ah! Ah! Ah!
It sounds like Roy had the hiccups and someone jumped at him from behind to scare him.
Ah!
Time now for Stugotz's weekend observations.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Dan.
Ah!
Last year, it was canceled due to a global pandemic.
Ah!
This year, it probably should have been canceled due to the same global pandemic that everyone seems to think is over.
Ah!
But, Dan, it is very much alive.
Ah!
But I digress.
Ah!
With a brilliant
Ah!
final round 66
Ah!
by Colin Morikawa
Ah!
at Royal St. George's Golf Course.
Ah!
Dan,
Ah!
make no mistake about it.
Ah!
The Open Championship
Ah!
is back. Speaking of back, Lewis Hamilton and that godforsaken Deer District. Brady did all that last year with a torn MCL. Jesus. And by Jesus, I mean Guerrero. Was anyone other than me getting concerned the NBA Finals were never going to start? They've started. Jacob deGrom.
Ah!
I'm no doctor. You scared me.
Ah!
I'm no doctor.
Ah!
But a weekly visit to the MRI machine
Ah!
is probably not
Ah!
a good thing.
I'm gonna get some golf ASMR.
Oh no. Go. Go.
Oh, fuck me.
The C in Chris Paul stands for crank up the excuse machine. Stiff neck.
Oh, fuck me.
Exactly. Top 5 underrated pains. You agree? I mean, the stiff neck is terrible. You sleep the wrong way. You have to move your whole body just to turn your neck. You know what I'm talking about? You've been there.
I think of back pain as a pain that is just totally debilitating.
Ah!
I have my top 5 underrated pains if you like.
All right, we'll do that afterward.
I got to do it now.
All right, ready, Mike? Can you switch over to the other soundboard? Top 5 underrated pains according to Stugotz. You got to do it now. Why the urgency?
It's part of my observations.
Okay.
I mean,
number 5.
tennis elbow. It's a doozy, Dan.
Number 4.
Pulling a hammy.
Number 3.
Jamming a finger.
Number 2.
Stiff neck.
Number 1.
A good stubbing of the toe. You agree?
It's a good list.
Thank you. Pre-boarding on airplanes. Huge problem. Dylan Fratelli. The rare golfer who, based on name alone, should be racing in the Indy 500. America's race. Dan, you know what the C in Chris Middleton stands for? Cantaloupes. And of course, the D in Drew Holiday stands for defense. Does anyone on the Bucks spell their name correctly? You got a Chris with a K, a Drew with a J. Get this. PJ Tucker's name is Anthony Leon Tucker. A.L. Tucker. A weekly tradition unlike any other.
So PJ Tucker is Al.
Yes. Al Tucker. Not as menacing, Al. A weekly tradition. Unlike any other. Jacob deGrom's injured arm. When Jacob deGrom isn't pitching, he's getting MRIs. Dan, 2 years ago.
You put an R in a go.
2 years ago. There's a lot of sounds, a lot of things going on in my head.
But you're not responsible for any of them.
The grandest stage of them all was moved to a performance center. Epic in-ring sagas were forced to turn to somatic storytelling. The lack of fans probably propelled cinematic. God, Mike, propelled one of the biggest stars to turn to Hollywood. But with the return of the WWE Universe.
Did you cover the word cinematic in semen? Semantic? Like, what did you just do?
I think that's semantics. Came those unmistakable home.
Horns.
Oh, leave me the hell alone. You wrote home. You wrote home. You wrote home.
He wrote those? I thought they were your weekend observations.
That one.
Just
He
the word
corrected
home?
me. Yeah. No, it's horns. He did. He got it.
I'm
He
looking
got
at
it.
it.
No, he
I
got
wrote
it.
horns.
He got it. He got it. He got it.
You're dyslexic, yes.
I am.
You
Yes.
Let's start that one over again.
Do we have to?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Dan, 2 years ago.
Yeah, there we go.
The grandest stage of them all was moved to a performance center. Epic in-ring sagas were forced to turn to cinematic storytelling. I was nervous there. The lack of fans probably propelled one of the biggest stars to turn to Hollywood. But with the return of the WWE Universe came those unmistakable horns. And then Austin Pop. Dan, make no mistake about it. John Cena is back. Nailed it.
Where?
Saw A Quiet Place over the weekend. You mean to tell me nobody's gonna fart? Please. There are a few things more tense than a Southwest Airlines seat stare down. Have you had one of those? Oh man, you're sitting there, you got the aisle seat, you got your bag next to you in the middle seat, pretending someone's gonna sit next to you. Really, all you're doing is telling everyone to get the hell away from you. Have you done that? It is tense. They're walking up to you, you're looking at them, they're looking at you. Woohoo! Had one of those yesterday.
You can't even sit in a seat without lying?
No. I mean, everyone does that on Southwest. You get on first. You're boarding an A, right? You sit in the aisle. You put a couple of things down in the other seats. No one sits next to you. It's a Southwest staple. Anyway, no one farted. The Buccaneers are visiting the White House Tuesday. Tom Brady, brace yourself. It's not nearly as white as it used to be. Game 6. The rare win or lose and go home game for the Suns. Amin El Hassan,
What's his name? Had a.
Meadowlark Media's basketball expert, after the Bucks were down 1-0, saying he had zero confidence the Bucks would win a single game in the NBA Finals. Amin, right now in the Hall of Fame, he's not in that Allen Iverson room, Bob. That's unfortunate. And the Stugotz is strong in you. The A in Amin stands for a really bad prediction. Kevin Durant.
It was actually worse than that. It was after.
Was it?
Because it was after 2 games that he did that, and they haven't lost since. Like
all they've done is win.
All they've done since Amin said they didn't belong in the finals and didn't have any confidence that they would win. They are undefeated since then.
That's our expert.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Kevin Durant.
Hey, we need that thumb to go this direction.
When Giannis talked about how his team stayed together, grinded it out the old-fashioned way, just so you know, he was speaking directly to you. Now you know. If a genie popped out of a bottle and granted me just one wish, I'd wish for the Deer District to go away. The up and down on the 10th hole by Morikawa won him the Open Championship. Louis Oosthuizen, the definition of lovable loser. Louis, do it in the final round. Louis Oosthuizen, more like Louis Oopshuizen. 2 athletes in the Olympic Village tested positive for COVID. Now we know why the emperor was concerned. Here's a simple life rule. If an emperor is concerned about an event, cancel the event. Yeah. He's an emperor, or she.
I am still reeling. I am still reeling from how mad this genie would be at you.
What do you mean?
For wasting his time.
That's not a waste of a wish, man. I'm telling you.
You said it's the only
Delta
wish,
variant lives there.
The only wish that you would make of a genie
is get rid of the Deer District. I had one wish.
It seems not wise to use your wish that way.
Why? I care about everyone, man. The people who are doing that don't care about anyone. I mean, except the Bucks. Dan, that is scary. We shouldn't be doing that. You agree? I'm being serious about it. I know we joke around weekend observations, but like everyone's acting like this thing is over. It's not over.
So the Deer District is somehow more dangerous than the closed arena full of people. That's your messaging.
Yeah.
If you had a wish for a genie, why wouldn't you just wish for COVID to go away?
That's a good point. Good point.
Or all disease while you were at it.
Well, I think all disease lives in the Deer District. If you get rid of the Deer District,
maybe it's not a he, maybe it's a she. I don't want to be gender binary about this. Not the emperor. I'm talking about the genie.
It is a lady's name.
He or she is going back to all the other genies and is going to be like, can you believe what this asshole wished for? Like, at the meeting, at the weekly meeting.
What would you wish for?
Not the deer, not anything related to the Deer District.
How did that happen? You guys are older. I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. It seems like it's the same show, but different, fantastical type of character from the world of magic, but carbon copies.
Bewitched and Jeannie.
What happened first? Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie?
I think Bewitched.
I think it was Bewitched because it started in black and white.
Started in black and white.
Went to color.
Yeah. And who's the actress that played the genie in I Dream of Jeannie? She really tapped into
Barbara Eden.
Barbara Eden.
Old ass Roy, always there.
Old ass Roy.
It's just Roy. Thank you.
Did she wiggle her nose? Is that
That
what?
was Bewitched,
That was
right?
Bewitched.
That was my
Bewitched.
favorite one. The genie did the arms thing
Montgomery.
and then the head nod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the nose one better.
Dan, you felt it. A gaping hole
What's it?
in the world of dance.
Oh.
Body stopped swaying.
Oh.
Drop stopped dropping.
Oh.
The big Vegas residence dried up. The Molly got worse. But after a 5-year hiatus, a one-off, reuniting for millions of dollars, and then a couple of more years hiatus, disappointing side projects, and the desperate yearning from club culture, begging for the return of their conquerors. Dan, make no mistake about it. Axwell. Ingrosso. Angelio.
Angelo.
The Swedish House Mafia is back. SHM. Mercedes Lewis said he thinks Aaron Rodgers will show up to training camp. I know. I couldn't believe it either. Mercedes Lewis is still playing, and he's a Packer. Here come the Jays. Noticed? You haven't noticed the Jays?
I'm still marveling at Mercedes Lewis still being in the league.
Are you? Roman Reigns, John Cena, SummerSlam, Collision Course. Ric Flair was the best wrestler of his generation, and he might not even be the best wrestler in his own family. Monty Williams said the Suns must do whatever it takes to win Game 6. Monty, that starts with you. Start Cameron Payne over Chris Paul. I dare you. Southwest Airlines, you and I have met for the final time. Good riddance. Chris Paul has become the Jameis Winston of the NBA. At this point, we all agree TB12 is just steroids, right? It has to be.
I don't know.
What other explanation do you have?
A genie.
Torn MCL, he won a Super Bowl at the age of 44.
A genie. I'm going to go ahead and guess a genie.
It's like a steroid cocktail. 12 different steroids.
I don't believe you can make that accusation.
I'm guessing.
Responsibly.
Okay. Florida Select 2022. Undefeated. #1 team in the country. Proud of you. Hell of a run. Speaking of hell, Art Briles. Dan, those are the weekend observations.
We'll get to the funniest thing from the sports weekend in a second. Jessica is very eager here to infect the show with some racing talk here. We will do that in a second as well. But there was a story here recently, Stugotz, in the New York Times and elsewhere, a feel-good story about a 70-year-old Batgirl living out a 60-year-old dream with the Yankees because at age 10, because she was a girl, she wasn't allowed or welcome on the field. And so 60 years later, she became a Batgirl, and it was heartwarming, and it passes for equality in baseball and progress. 60 years later, ladies, you too can evolve to the point where you can pick up after men when they throw their shit on the floor and have it be an uplifting moment where you belong. We will get again to the funniest thing from the sports weekend, but we used to have around here 30 seconds of soccer or 1 minute of soccer, but now soccer has infected the show a little more now that Whittingham and Mike Ryan can annoy you with all their soccer takes, and it's not relegated to 30 seconds.
Bullshit frame job.
Or a minute.
Infected, bore. Like, it's just, guys, we're here talking about the NBA Finals, and in this country, more people watch the Euro Final than the NBA Finals. I understand our audience watch the NBA Finals more, but when you take in the total combined rating, what you're talking about is more niche when you're talking about the NBA Finals than just the Euros. And this constant bullshit framing that you do makes it such a tune-out for me that I'm constantly fighting an uphill battle, and it's certainly not my pompous tone.
I would say that I was speaking for the audience there. It doesn't bother me at all. I've welcomed it again and again. I'm the inventor of 30 seconds of soccer or a minute of soccer on this show. I want more and more of it. It is welcome here, but the audience does object to it. So here it is, 1 minute of racing talk. We need to grow the racing talk around here because vroom, vroom, Verstappen.
Yes, there you go, Dan.
Had a situation. So give us a minute of racing talk, Jessica.
First of all, I'm going to need more than a minute because the race yesterday was so dramatic. It was by far the most dramatic race of the season, probably in decades. In all of my days as an F1 fan, I have never seen anything like the first lap yesterday at Silverstone. So Lewis Hamilton qualified. They did a sprint race this weekend to qualify. So Lewis was in P2 and Verstappen was in P1. And they were going at it around the first lap. And they got to Copse Corner, which is a right turn. And Lewis had the inside. He's trying to make a pass on Verstappen. And they were kind of neck and neck, depends who you ask. There's some animosity, it's some disagreement about which car was ahead. But anyways, Lewis had the inside, Verstappen had the outside. Lewis didn't take all of the space to his right, making this right-hand turn. Verstappen didn't give him any space on the trajectory he was going. So Lewis kind of clipped Verstappen a little bit. Verstappen had a huge spin out, hit the wall, had to go to the hospital to get checked out. He is fine. Everything is great. But it was like a 2-hour stoppage, basically, because they had to clean up his car. His car was completely destroyed. And then there was this whole debate over whether Lewis or Verstappen was to blame for the crash.
Time!
Didn't even get to the good part.
Well, you got a minute. You're going to have to get better at that. That's how it works around here. How do you think that Mike and Chris Whittingham got to be such, and you were cafecitoing it. You were talking very fast there.
Yeah.
But next time you will get more time. Perhaps tomorrow you will get another minute of time because Verstappen really he got pretty mad about the whole thing.
I feel so bad for you, Jessica. Now you understand why I got my rushed cocaine delivery.
Sounded more fun than soccer, though.
Look at how hurt she is. She is wounded. She is steaming. Time now for the funniest thing from the sports weekend.
Hey, people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend.
Chris Cody bobbing in the back room there. What was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
The Suns fan inexplicably counting $100 bills during Giannis's free throw attempts.
What was that?
Just making it. That's not making it rain.
That's not making it rain. Everyone made fun of him.
Maybe at a cross trip that he was coming back from or something.
Whittingham, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Brooks Koepka saying that he loves his driver.
That was mine too.
We need some golf
stole your
rivalry.
thunder?
We need some golfers behaving badly. We need them being impolite.
I'm trying to put Morikawa in some sort of historical perspective today, and the guys were right. The far more fascinating story was DeChambeau. I mean, what happened to
Roy, what was
Bad
the
judgment.
funniest thing from the sports weekend?
The translator for the San Jose Earthquakes manager received a red card and had to leave the pitch.
What happened?
So there's kind of theories out there that Matias
Whoa.
Almeida sends his translator to go yelling at the fourth official, and I guess the translator, when carrying out his instructions,
Time! Tony, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
From the world of golf, we had this picture for the YouTube audience emerge of somebody leering awkwardly at Jordan Spieth and reminiscing of this right here. I'm gonna zoom in just so the YouTube audience can see. Like he's going commando on some cargo shorts, and it's not a good look for him. No shirt.
What
no, I don't
an
know.
amazing gut.
Yeah.
Nice work by that guy.
Oh yeah, right there. Right
Yes.
there. That's good. That's good stuff.
Mike Ryan, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
For me, it's a Koepka.
Okay.
It's a Koepka Bryson thing, and how aware they are of it. But there's some real animosity there still.
Billy, what are you saying is the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
The Mets, just the Mets deciding to stop play baseball in the middle of a play.
It's mine too, man. Pirates just rounding the bases while the Mets are
You
arguing
were
a
just
call.
what was the headline that you were just reading me a second ago?
Pirates rounding the bases while the Mets argue a call. It was like right out of a movie, man.
Jessica, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
LeBron's very loud pattern shirt, because the second season of I Think You Should Leave had a whole bit about these large pattern shirts, and then Lewis got a 10-second penalty, so he had to fight back from basically like a 30-second deficit, and Charles Leclerc was in first place, and it took until like lap 51 he finally passed Leclerc, won his 8th Silverstone Grand Prix, tying with Michael Schumacher and Senna and his own other record for most wins at a single circuit, and it was an electric race, Dan.
it's the British Grand Prix.
I Think You Should Leave Now is a funny show. It is.
Chris Whittingham is a fancy lad.
I thought you were going to say, I think you should leave now, Chris.
I should have said that. That happened with my brother's girlfriend. We were in a loud place right now, and I was trying to tell her about that show, and she got hurt because she thought I was telling her that I thought she should leave now. She really, she didn't understand what I was saying. It's a thing that actually happened. Stugotz, what is the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
I think I already gave you mine. That's a fine. The Pirates rounding the bases.
Okay, my bad.
That's okay.
Did we go through everyone? Oh, no, wait a minute. Someone else gave me that. You just repeated it because you didn't want to come up with your own.
Well, I mean, that's what Mike did. Okay, you yell at me, but hold on a second. Randy Scott doing a word combination on SportsCenter. That was great.
You don't
Cody style.
You don't. What was the word combination? Do you know?
Ristery. Risco mystery. How about that, Dano? Thought you had me, huh?
I really did.
I had you.
Yes, you really pulled me into the cage there with your big.
You fool.
Yes. Yep, you got me, Stugotz. I saw this is one of these stories where I thought that the internet was fooling me out of Nevada. A woman, it's not even funny as much as it is strange, and I just had a lot of follow-up questions, which is that a woman broke into a dentist's office and stole a bunch of money, and also while she was there, she pulled 13 teeth from an unconscious patient. And I was just wondering to myself, why was someone left that unconscious? Well, because the extracting of
You'll
teeth.
wake up after like
no,
4.
But that can't be. That's not a short and quick job, is it? I'm imagining that the pulling of teeth is something that is hard to do, and it just. She was in there for a while doing work, and it just made me wonder why, how. I had 1,000 follow-up questions. Is just a crazy person? Can we talk to the person who had the teeth extracted? Can the person who had the teeth extracted talk? Mike, you were saying that Alabama, what was that stat you were giving us during the break about Alabama being favored in games in football?
It's expected that Alabama is going to be favored in all 12 games this season. If that indeed holds true, they would have been favored for 92 consecutive college football games. Nick Saban's good.
Is the money going to change all that? Is the money going to change that particular dominance? Because Clemson has been working and trying to change that dominance, but the sport, it feels a little bit like we're in the 50s when Notre Dame could win all the games because it's one program. Every year, there's randomness and there's sample size that can distort things. But every year, you know that Alabama, Lane Kiffin told us, he said every time we came onto the field, we knew we had better players at every single position. We'd walk onto the field and we'd see our bodies against their bodies, and we just knew that we had better players at every position. Is the money going to get everybody else back into the game, the paying of players?
I don't think there's enough of an argument being made for parity in college football with the introduction of NIL, because I do think recruits may stay closer to home because they don't need to travel as far where the money was. I think the SEC reached its ceiling of dominance. They were cheating. I'll say it. Shocking. The SEC football programs were skirting the rules and getting away with it, and they were a lot better at doing that than some of the others. It's not the only reason for their dominance. It's not. Nick Saban's a tremendous coach.
None of that stuff sticks to Alabama. That stuff, you can think it all you want, but Alabama runs a program that does not have very much stain there.
They've had tremendous football teams, tremendous coaching. The SEC is dominant because they recruit well in great recruiting bases. There are other reasons than just the fact that they cheat, but they do. So now, if everyone is able to pay players through these alternate means, then you quickly reach a point where there are no more car dealerships in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They're going to have to get creative with the way that they pay players, and I'm sure they are. But now that you have other programs that, because of their history or location, couldn't necessarily do the things that the SEC programs would do so overtly, now I think you'll see more of it, and I actually think that NIL might introduce a bit more parity in college football.
It might, but I was reading the ancillary sports are going to benefit more because those athletes are at the height of their sport when they get to college. Like, it doesn't go past that. It doesn't. They don't become professional, and so some of the hesitancy with some of the college football players is how long will they be there for? Will they be able to endorse this thing once they turn pro and go to the NFL because they have team endorsements? So it's going to be interesting to see if it evens out in college football, if it helps other teams,
Something needs to even it out because at this point, what Alabama has is a juggernaut that cannot be stopped by anything but that, because they're.
Well, it can be stopped by LSU and Ohio State.
No, but it can be. When I'm not talking about winning every championship. I'm talking about being favored in every damn game, as if they should win every damn game for a decade.
But you still want to go to Alabama to play football if you can go to Alabama to play football.
No, so they're still going to get top line recruits. They're still going to find a way to get money in the hands of players but I just think that other teams now have an opportunity to get in the game for some of these talents, where before it was just open and shut. I'd love to get Jessica's opinion on this. People have asked me. I'm going to the Miami-Alabama game, and Miami's probably going to get throttled by Alabama. It's a team that lost 15 players to the NFL, I believe. And everyone was telling me, why you got to go see your team get throttled? What do you expect? What's a good result? I'm like, they beat Ohio State by 35 in the national championship game. Like, if we lose by 35, I'm going to be elated.
People are still going to go to Alabama because Alabama has Nick Saban, and as long as Nick Saban is still coaching, that's the premier destination for football, and there will be more parity in college football when the transcendent coaches like Nick Saban, being probably the only one, really. I guess Dabo you can make an argument for, when they retire. And Nick Saban, I think we've talked about on the show before, he's going to go down swinging or coaching, whatever you want to call it.
I understand the point that you're making, but Les Miles, Gene Chizik, they have all toppled Nick Saban at certain points.
Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, because the spending got out of control, and they were able to buy better players in those seasons.
But
Go ahead, Billy.
How can we say that Alabama is paying players and just assume no one else is, and that this will somehow catch up? Because
who's
if anything, this
that,
just legalizes what Alabama's allegedly doing, but they're not the only one. We can't just pretend Alabama's the only one paying people under the table.
There are caps. There are caps on what teams can do. They can only go so far. They can only pay so much money, and that may
The
still
cap was
remain
0
true.
before, and they still found ways around it. So
Right.
what's that going to change?
And their boosters may find ways to get money in hands, and they'll still do under the table stuff, even though they have the avenue of NIL. All I'm just saying is, before, if I were a hot prospect coming from, this is unfair to paint it with a broad brush, but say I'm a 5-star recruit and I'm coming out of tough circumstances for my family, I potentially don't have to travel hundreds of miles to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, when I can still take care of my family and actually physically take care of them because I'm closer in proximity now that some of these things have loosened up. I think you'll see more of that.
But Mike, you want to go to Alabama because
I
Nick
understand.
Saban gets you to the NFL.
Oh, it's a
and once
training
you get
ground.
there, you're great.
You go to college to
Right.
train for your next job, and Nick Saban's as good at doing that as anybody.
I could see it like there being a sprinkling of 5-star recruits who might go to like their dream school where they didn't think they'd be able to make money because now they can make money on NIL. I could see that being something that would happen, but I don't think saying like the SEC's reached its ceiling is necessarily true. Like Tuscaloosa, the entire economy runs on Alabama football. There's going to be ways for more players to make money, and there's still a ceiling that is not even close to being reached.
Wait a second,
I mean,
though.
I feel like we've seen that ceiling. You're saying more dominance?
I'm talking about there are now a whole lot of boosters and programs that have more money than Tuscaloosa that can get into this game in all sorts of creative ways, and you shouldn't underestimate what Mike is saying there. Many of these kids don't want to leave their local school to go and get the best professional route at Alabama with the coaching of Nick Saban. Many of those kids don't want to compete with 7 other guys who are better than them at the same position, and they can just stay home, but they end up going to Tuscaloosa because Tuscaloosa has had a monopoly on what the pipeline to the NFL has been. I don't believe that there has been a greater threat to Alabama football than the money now pouring into the sport all over the place. And I say that I'm not willing to just be out here accusing Alabama of cheating. It does strain reason to think that everyone else is cheating and Alabama is so good that they don't have to beat and they can beat all of the they don't have to cheat and they can beat all of the cheaters without cheating. But I think money is the only thing that gets anyone else into the game.
If you've ever talked to someone whose life is recruiting, like the recruiting culture, like they know where all the bodies are buried. Their entire life is, why is this kid going here? And they know exactly how you take care of families, and you have parachute payments that just find its way into advisors. It is a dicey game that certain schools just can't do it because a block is too hot, or can only do it to a certain extent because of their history or their conference. And now you have bases in, like, USC is going to benefit tremendously from this because they have a big alumni base with very legal enterprises that they can find ways to sponsor players. So
USC was Alabama before Alabama.
Yeah.
But their athletic department's also a dumpster fire, and their head coach has been on the hot seat for 6 years. Like, if you're a recruit, you can still make that money somewhere else with a coach that's more stable, like Ryan Day, or go to Georgia or go to Alabama. Like, I don't think it's necessarily going to just automatically create parity. I think there's still reasons why recruits choose schools other than they can make money in that town, and now you can make money in every town. So I don't know.
I'm with Jess kind of, where if you're a 5-star recruit and you live in LA, why go to USC when you get, I understand the value of staying at home, staying close to home, if that is indeed important to you. But USC or Alabama or USC or Ohio State, why would you choose USC?
No, I understand. They're all valid points, and I don't think this is going to happen overnight. But I think a lot of great coaches are going to be made from great boosters that found ways to get creative. We're going to build. There was this, The Athletic did a piece on it, and I only got to read a portion of it because I don't have a login, about how, like, Kansas, Florida.
How much did you read? 3 paragraphs?
I saw 3 paragraphs, and then it started fading into darker. I was just like, but I had someone encapsulate it. And
Did you try and read it when it became a little bit darker? Did you try and pull up the screen a little bit and read around the block that was in the middle of your page?
Yeah, man, it seems like they have a really good product, but I'm not paying for it, guys. So we really... It's a resistible force and immovable object at this point. I'm not paying for something I used to get for free for
Didn't
so
they just
long.
raise their prices? They just raised them again, didn't they?
I would love to believe that now that Notre Dame can have their players make money off of the massive alumni base, that they're all of a sudden going to be even better and win 10 national championships. But I don't think it's that easy. I don't think, like, you get this level playing field overnight because of this. I honestly think that Notre Dame's still going to get the recruits that they want and that they go after. There might be like one or two really good guys that they get now because of this specific reason, but I don't think it's going to be enough to completely shake things up and make it a completely level playing field, or even even more level playing field.
Let me backtrack for a moment.
A level paying field is what we're talking
That
about.
is what
Level
we're going-
paying field is actually what is occurring right
Yeah,
now.
that's what I'm
But
gonna name the book.
I still think there's gonna be under the table booster paying, and I think schools might now have more of a stomach for it because they can get away with it a lot easier too. So schools like Alabama and other SEC schools and Power 5 schools that have been winning the last 10 years are probably still going to pay their players for certain things. And a smaller school that wasn't in the game of bagmen, they can get their player a commercial sponsorship, but they're still not going to be able to keep up with the top schools.
I need to ask the tipping point on what's going to make you pay for The Athletic, what the story needs to be, what on any of this stuff. Is there a tipping point for any of you listening to this? Because we're all doing it. Ooh, that story looks interesting. 3 paragraphs. That's pretty good. I want to keep reading. Oh, now you put this block in the middle of my phone. It can't move it. Wait a minute. This isn't, I've used up all my free articles for the month. Okay, bleep you and your information. I don't want to be smarter. Not if it costs me money, only for free. Is there a tipping point on this that something, a scandal of some sort? If I put the Donald Sterling story in front of you as it was breaking, what is the scandal I can put in front of you that would get you guys to pay and not be blocked by the paywall and go away until the next time it happens?
I love that Mike knows that I have an Athletic subscription, and I have multiple times saved to PDF articles for him. And yet, for some reason, is there just like a shame where you don't want to ask me this multiple times in a day? And if you're asking multiple times in a day, then why don't you just pay for it?
Do that. I'm not going to pay for it.
Right,
so
exactly. It's a good call, Mike.
You know,
especially since
you're
Winnie
not
has
the
it.
only
I mean,
person in town with admin credentials to The Athletic. I'll get the nut where I can find it.
So what you're saying is there is no tipping point. You will continue to ask Whittingham.
Yeah,
you will continue to bum passwords.
If you somehow make The Athletic part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then maybe I will pay a subscription for it.
Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo. Let's update some polls here. It's been a minute. I'd like to update some polls at Batard Show, but put it on the poll. Is there any article that is making you pay to get over the paywall? Because I feel like everyone listening.
I got so many free trials going on right now, man.
I feel like everyone listening to me right now is doing the same thing. We have found the one place in America where we can all agree on something. That all of us, if you're not already, see, some of you, whether you're trying to just support journalism or you just like reading newspapers and want to be informed, you will indeed get a subscription to the places that you like. But more of you are deeply stubborn and you do not want to pay, no matter how many times you get an article from the Washington Post. Has a lot of amazing work.
So I'm told.
I have, the New York Times is still the one.
Oh, man.
If you say so.
Kate Fagan sent me this New York Times article that seemed fascinating. I think the guy mentioned our show, and I was just like, I didn't have the heart to tell her. Why? Also, that's presumptuous. You assume that I'm just subscribed to the New York Times. I got HBO Max, I got Prime, I got Paramount Plus. There's a lot of plates that I'm spinning here, and only certain entities are getting this $9.99.
At Batard Show on Twitter, just put it up there, because I think the grand majority of people listening right now are nodding in agreement. Yes, this happens to me all the time. The block stops me and I only read 3 paragraphs.
Just for all my friends that are listening to this, Chris, don't send me an Athletic article. Tell me what it says. Yeah. That's all I want from you. Don't do the flex of, hey, oh, you got to read this piece in the New York Times. No, you got to read it to me. Otherwise, I'm going to go.
Does Whittingham need to start copying and pasting the articles instead?
I've done that before. I've like sent like 4 screenshots of a New York Times article to Mike so that he can read it. It just is so dismaying.
It's like charging someone to go to your funeral. You're dying, okay? I'm not going to pay to go watch and see you die. Reading's dying. Everybody knows
Yeah,
it.
put that on the poll. Is reading dying?
That's not true. Reading is not dying.
Oh, it's
Oh,
a fact, Jack.
it's dying, Dan.
No,
Trust me.
no, newspapers might be dying. Reading is not dying. That is
dead for a long
No, it's
time.
dying. I'm reading right now. I'm reading Flea's book. You know how I'm reading it? Audiobook. But
Which you're paying for.
Yeah, it's super convenient. Someone's reading it to me. Flea's reading it to me. So I don't have to go out and buy the book.
You know what's funny about that? I believe I'm willing to make an exception here and call an audiobook reading.
My
Really?
man,
Look.
thank you.
No.
Wow.
Thank you. Normalize this.
No, it's
normalize this.
Bullshit.
Normalize
You're listening to a
this.
podcast.
Is
No,
watching a
no.
movie reading?
Normalize
No,
it.
it's just reading a book is reading.
Yes.
Reading. I agree.
No,
I
someone
listen to
reading a
shit ton
book
of
to you
books.
is reading.
Thank you. No,
Yes.
no. You don't
Reading
get
is
to,
back. Yes.
you don't get to be smarter.
I'm listening to Kate Fagan's book right now that she narrates that she
Reading.
wrote. I'm reading that book.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you
No,
are.
you're
She's
not.
telling it
Don't
to me in her own
apologize
voice.
for
It's
it.
actually better than if I were reading it myself and attributing a voice to her in my head.
Yes. It's a lot easier too because if I want to impress somebody, I'll say like I'm reading this book, and you've all been there on the
They don't
receiving
know the
end of it.
difference.
Wow, this
Oh.
person's learned. Wow, what a thoughtful person this is, constantly seeking education. Why are they considered smarter than me, who likes to listen to Flea talk about his life in 1.5 times speed? I'm reading that book.
People learn in different ways. I learn from hearing things. I don't learn as fast from reading something on a screen. It depends on the person. Like when I was in school, I learned better when a teacher would tell me something and I'd write it down than when they'd like assign a piece of paper that I had to read. It'd take me longer to get through it and to understand it. People are different.
Reading Spark Notes is closer to reading a book than listening to someone else read you a book.
That is not true, Billy.
Yeah, at least you're reading.
No.
Horrible
See,
take.
you're part of the problem. You're perpetuating this bias that somehow if I read the words on a paper, it makes me smarter than if I just listen to them. How about this? Our show is a book.
It is not.
Yes, we read a great show today. Yeah.
I read a book
What?
today.
You read a book. Congratulations.
This is great.
I feel smarter already.
It's a light read though. The show.
Never
right?
felt dumber.
I believe, put it on the poll at Lebitard Show, Guillermo, does listening to an audiobook qualify as reading? Yes or no? I love this as a subject. I do, because it's not actually reading, but to me, reading, the way that I think of reading is downloading information.
Correct, Dan. You know, I've read 20 books on this subject. I really have. I'm one of the world's most foremost Manson experts.
You've listened to 20 books on this subject.
But I'm
He's read
still
'em.
just as smart as the person that read it. We got the same information. And just because they got to say they read it doesn't make them any smarter than me. It just makes them more patient.
Can't highlight an audiobook. Can't write in the margins. Can't go back and reference. You have to like find a pinpoint somewhere in chapter 3.
Don't
and
make
go,
me side with them,
I
Woody.
mean,
Seriously.